Imagine this. You take a normal breath. People are walking to work. Children are laughing. Cars fill the streets. Airplanes cross the sky. The world looks exactly as it always has. Then, without warning, every molecule of oxygen on Earth disappears. Not forever, just 5 seconds. It doesn't sound terrifying. After all, most people can hold their breath for much longer than that. So what could possibly happen in only 5 seconds? The answer is far worse than almost anyone imagines, because this isn't just about breathing. Oxygen is part of almost everything that makes life on Earth possible, and the moment it disappears, the countdown begins. Your body reacts instantly. You try to take another breath, but your lungs find nothing. Not because you're choking, not because something is blocking your airway, but because there is simply no oxygen left to breathe. And then, something even stranger happens. The world goes quiet, completely quiet. The traffic disappears. The voices vanish. Even your own scream would never reach your ears. For one impossible moment, Earth falls into a silence no human has ever experienced. But that silence is only the beginning, because while billions of people are still trying to understand what's happening, the entire planet has already started to change. Commercial airplanes, power plants, oceans, cities, even your own body is now racing against time. And here's the terrifying part. Most people think that once oxygen returns, everything would simply go back to normal. It wouldn't. Because in just 5 seconds, some events can't be undone. Aircraft flying thousands of meters above the Earth would suddenly face an impossible situation. Across the oceans, ships would encounter something no captain has ever prepared for. And all over the world, millions of people would witness scenes that seem more like science fiction than reality. But none of those would be the most shocking consequence. Because there is one effect so unexpected that almost nobody thinks about it. And once you understand what happens next, you'll never look at the air around you the same way again. The first to feel the disaster would not be people, it would be the sky. At this very second, thousands of airplanes are in the air. Their engines depend on oxygen. Without it, fuel can no longer burn properly. Within moments, thrust would begin to disappear. Pilots would see warnings on their instruments that they had never seen before. No one would understand what was happening, because no one has ever prepared for a world without oxygen. And even if the engines started working again after 5 seconds, those few moments could become critical for planes that are taking off, landing, or flying in difficult conditions. And while everyone looks up at the sky, the real disaster is already unfolding on the ground. Most people think oxygen is only needed for breathing, but in reality, it is involved in countless processes happening around us, and when it suddenly disappears, the world we know begins to behave in completely different ways. But the biggest surprise would wait for those standing outside, because almost nobody thinks about the fact that Earth's atmosphere does far more than provide air to breathe. It helps maintain the conditions that allow life to exist, and if that invisible layer suddenly changed, the consequences could be felt in ways we would never expect. And that is still not the most shocking part. Look around you. Buildings, bridges, skyscrapers. Everything around us was created in a world where air has always been there. Now imagine that this invisible force suddenly disappears. Countless systems would instantly be affected. Fires would go out. Engines would stop working. Many processes we take for granted would suddenly fail. But even that is not the biggest mystery, because there is one place where the changes could reveal consequences most people would never connect with oxygen: the oceans. And what happens beneath the surface could be far more terrifying than anything happening on land. The oceans. They seem eternal, vast worlds of water that have survived millions of years of change on our planet. They have witnessed the rise and disappearance of entire species. They have endured ice ages, powerful storms, and disasters that reshaped the Earth. But even a system this powerful depends on something invisible: oxygen. Most people think oxygen is only needed by creatures living on land, but the ocean breathes too. Dissolved oxygen in the water supports billions of living organisms, from tiny microscopic creatures that we cannot even see to enormous whales crossing entire oceans. Every part of this system is connected. If oxygen suddenly disappeared for just 5 seconds, the oceans would not instantly become lifeless, but those few seconds would reveal a frightening truth. Life on Earth is not as unbreakable as we imagine. It exists because of a perfect balance that has been forming for billions of years. But the oceans are only the beginning, because oxygen does not only affect living organisms, it is also part of the processes that created our civilization. Think about fire. We see it every day: a candle, a fireplace, a flame on a stove. But behind every flame is a chemical reaction that cannot happen without oxygen. If oxygen disappeared, billions of small flames across the planet would vanish at the same moment, and humanity would witness something it has never seen before: a world without fire. But the biggest impact would not come from ordinary flames. It would come from industry, steel factories, power plants, engines. Technologies that seem unstoppable would suddenly become dependent on one invisible element. Imagine a modern city, millions of people, thousands of vehicles, aircraft in the sky, complex systems working every second, and suddenly, for 5 seconds, the world loses one of the fundamental conditions that allows it to function. Most people would not even have enough time to understand what happened, but the planet would briefly reveal its true nature. We often believe that technology is what makes our civilization powerful. We build skyscrapers, create artificial intelligence, send spacecraft to other planets. But all of this is possible only because we live in a unique environment: a thin layer of atmosphere, the right temperature, water, oxygen. Everything around us feels guaranteed, but it is not. Earth is a system where every element has a purpose, and even the brief absence of one of them would force us to think differently. Because the most terrifying question is not, what would happen if oxygen disappeared for 5 seconds? The most terrifying question is, what if one day it started disappearing slowly, without a dramatic moment, without warning, day after day, year after year? That is when humanity would face a problem that could not be fixed in just a few seconds. Because oxygen is not simply a gas, it is the foundation of a complex system that has allowed life to exist for billions of years. And perhaps the greatest lesson of this imaginary disaster is not fear, it is understanding. We live inside an incredibly fragile world, a world that functions because of things we almost never notice. So the next time you take a breath, remember, it is not just air. It is the invisible force that keeps our entire world alive. And maybe the most surprising thing is this: the world does not depend only on the things we can see. It depends on invisible forces we often ignore. The air we breathe, the balance of nature, the fragile systems that keep Earth alive. Because sometimes the greatest mysteries are not hidden somewhere far away. They are right above us, surrounding us every single day.